There are two quilt guilds in my local area that do annual quilt shows, and I love going to them. Seriously, I never thought I would be that person that would spend my weekends going to quilt shows, but here I am, and I am down for it. This past weekend, the Stone House Quilters Guild had their 2024 quilt show, and it was in a new location, so I was really excited about that for them. I think they had it at the Boys and Girls Club in Manassas, Virginia. In today's video, I'm going to share with you kind of a recap of my experience with the quilt show. I am really excited to talk to you about all the things that I saw and some of the things that I purchased. But before we do, let me just tell you that my name is Becca, and I would love if you like the video you're about to watch, if you hit that thumbs up, you hit the subscribe button, and you come on back for some of my future videos. Before we dive into what I bought from the quilt show, I do want to talk to you about my cup because I get lots of questions about this cup. This is not a Stanley cup. It is a custom Stanley-like cup. Still does all the same things that a Stanley cup does, but it's customized. It is customized by a lady who owns a shop called Grunge and Grace, and it's over on Etsy, so you can go shop her stuff. You can even order custom mugs in all different shapes and varieties. If you're into that, if you have maybe a piece of fabric that you want to memorialize and do a cup, instead of having her provide it, you can provide the fabric and she can do the work for you. And I want to show you that I love this one so much that I bought a second one with the Roar fabric from Tulip Field, and I can't wait to start using this. So you're going to see that pop up in videos now and again. I will link to her shop in the description box down below in case you want to pick one of these up. All right, so let's talk about the quilt show. The quilt show was awesome. I love going to a good quilt show. There's so much talent on display, and I always leave feeling inspired and ready to create something. But any good quilt show has a selection of vendors to shop from, and so I had to do a little bit of shopping first. Before I show you my favorite quilts from the show, let me first talk to you about the things that I bought from the quilt show. It started off with the silent auction table. Now, the Guild always does this boutique where they take all of these things that are donated from different members in the Guild and they package them together in baskets or bags and they set them down on tables with a little bidding slip. And there's a starting price, a buy it now price, and then just lines for you to write in your bid. I browsed several of the things there. A couple of things caught my eye, but then I saw this bag. OMG, you guys. I looked at it and I knew right away that I had to have this bag. And when I looked at the slip for the bidding, the buy it now price was $80 and the bidding was at $45. And I thought, you know what? I can tell, I think that there's 2 jelly rolls in there. I see some yardage, and I think there might even be some extra jelly rolls, and there's a pattern. So worst case scenario, there's 2 jelly rolls, yardage, and a pattern. It's a quilt kit for $80. That can't be beat, especially since I could tell from the label that the batiks that were in there were Hoffman batiks. And so I picked it up. And I decided I was going to pay the buy it now price. And then I got it home and I started to record some B-roll so I could show you what was in this bag. And y'all, I started unpackaging the items and I was like, why are there 2 patterns in here? There's 2 patterns. Maybe they just printed it out twice. Fine, whatever. But then I realized there were 4 half-size jelly rolls. So 2 jelly rolls of the batik colors. And there were 2 jelly rolls of the hand-cut pre-cuts from Jordan Fabrics. And then for the border and accent fabric, there were 2 cuts of each of those fabrics. And I quickly realized that they didn't put just enough stuff in there to make 1 kit. They did 2. So for $80, I got 2 quilt kits. That's a $40 quilt kit. OMG, yeah, I'm totally on board for that. So I don't know exactly who that second one's going to go to. Ian's kind of eyeballing it, so I might set it aside for him. When he gets to the area, that might be a fun project for him. But I know I'm definitely making one of these. And you'll want to stay tuned because this is a project that I'm going to do on National Jelly Roll Day, and there will be more details about that in the coming days. I'll give you the date and the time, but I'll have a couple of friends join me on that live stream, and we're all going to put something together with a jelly roll. So start thinking about what you want to do, and maybe you can join us for that sew along. After the boutique, I headed deeper into the quilt show and I stopped by a booth that I went to last year. This vendor had furniture that they had taken old treadle machines and turned into new pieces of furniture. Last year, Mary and I both bought a treadle desk from them. I love my treadle desk. It actually sits in my family room, not my living room. It sits in my family room and it holds my work computer. So on the days where I have the luxury of being able to work from home, I actually get to sit at a piece of old sewing furniture and work. And there's just something about being able to work the treadle when I'm actively doing my job that it's kind of exciting. You get the soothing sound of the treadle while knocking out some work, deliverables, and meeting some deadlines. Anywho, they recognized me from last year because we bought the furniture, I think, and I had to, of course, buy something this year. So this year, I picked up these 2 clipboards that they have converted into a portable ironing board. Essentially, they took a clipboard, added some backing and some fabric to it, and then on the back side put some rug gripper so it doesn't slide around. Genius. It can be a portable design board. You can put your little fabric pieces for your block on it, or you can use it to press. Either one works. Or you can use the clipboard function thingy to put your pattern on. Whatever works for you. So I got both of them. They had 2 for sale. One of them I picked up because it had really bright colors. It reminded me of Ian and I thought he would like it. So I snagged that one for him and I grabbed the other one for me. The third vendor I went to was the Airborne Apple. This is a wonderful sewist by the name of Karen who makes bags on a Juki. She is a full-time teacher and does this in her side time, and when she has availability, she'll take her handmade bags to craft shows and sell them, and they are so reasonably priced. Every time I see her at a quilt show, I have to pick up a bag. I now have an Airborne Apple collection because they are so well made and I love the style and the designs that she picks out. And I just like to be able to support her. I think her bags are underpriced, but hey, listen, that just means I'll get 2 instead of 1. So I got 2 bags this time around. The first one that I got, I was really excited about because it has kind of a wallet built into it and it hits at my hip right where I want it to hit if I'm going to wear it crossbody. Also, I love cherry blossoms, and the outside of the bag reminded me a bit of cherry blossoms. Maybe because they are cherry blossoms, but maybe they're not. I don't know. But it reminded me of cherry blossoms, so I had to have that one. There was a second bag there that another lady... I'm laughing. This other lady was picking up and looking at it, and I think she was seriously contemplating getting the bag. And I was just messing around with her. I wanted to be funny. So I walked up to her. I was like, yeah, you should set that down. You should definitely set that down. And she just kind of looked at me out of the corner of her eye, and she set it down and looked at me, and I went, thanks, and I picked it up. I still think it's funny. I didn't take it away from her, but I was threatening to, and it just kind of became a little bit of this playful tension while we were both in the booth. And so when I picked up the one purse that I did want to get with the cherry blossoms, she totally looked over it and she's like, you gonna set that down? You gonna set that down? It was so great. Anywho, she ended up opting not to buy that second bag and left the booth. So I figured, well, if she's really not going to buy it, then I guess I will. So I bought that one as well. And this one's really cool because it just has the flap that goes over it, and it's just your traditional shoulder style bag. You can wear it crossbody. There's enough of a strap there to put it across your body, but both bags are really, really well made. I have bags that Karen has made in the past. They are doing fabulously. They've held up year after year. So I definitely didn't have a hard time parting with the money to walk away with those 2 new bags. All of these vendors, by the way, if they have an online presence, I'm going to put them down in the description box down below so that maybe you can check out some of the things that they have. But I do want to call your attention to one more thing. This guy. I have been using this instead of my blade saver tool from Purple Hobbies because this was a gift bought for me from Mary from the same quilt show. There's a couple of woodworkers that have vendor booths at this quilt show, and one of them makes this exact tool. I bought one of these for Mary last year and she bought one for me. So we each have the same one. He does not sell online, but I do get a lot of questions about where can I get one of these. And I told him that I had people that were not local that were interested in these tools and asked how they could get one if he didn't have an online store. And he said, all you have to do is email him. So in the description box down below, I will put his contact information, and I'm even inserting right here on the video a nice picture of his business card. So if you're interested in getting one of these little doohickeys, that's where his info is. And for those of you that don't know what this is, it's like the blade saver, thread cutter, whatever tool. Each one of these notches has a sharp edge in there, so it allows you to take your chain stitching and just kind of cut them off here. When I'm using my Juki, I use the flip pedal to cut my threads, but now that I'm predominantly sewing on my Singer 301, I like having something like this because I do a lot more chain stitching, and this is a very handy tool to have. Okay, I have been going on for like 35 minutes about all the things that I bought from the quilt show, and I'm sure you guys just want to get to the good part, right? Yeah, let's just skip to the good part and look at the quilts. I loved this one. This is called Gradiation Dots. It's made by Pat Price, and actually this quilt won a viewer's choice ribbon, and I'm super proud of that because I voted for it. Tulip Field is a hand quilted chevron pattern made by Janelle Hansen. This was beautiful and the hand stitching was exquisite. I love tulips, so when I saw this, I definitely was drawn to it. This quilt was made by Brenda Bauman as the result of a block exchange. Each person from California, Ohio, Nevada, Washington, Virginia, and Canada signed their blocks, and she calls it her Purple Signature Block Exchange, and it was quilted by herself. This quilt was massive, and it was one of Jason's favorites. It's called Alaskan Holiday. It measures 108 inches by 108 inches, and it's made by Brenda Bauman. She said she pieced this Alaskan Holiday quilt, the pattern is by Laundry Basket Quilts, in 2020 during a quilt along with her friend in Florida through video chat. It was her second quilt to sew together. She added 5 borders to the quilt, including a pieced diamond border to make it king size, which I think is great, and then quilted it this year with a snowflake pattern. I love batiks and I love a Bargello, so it's no surprise that I love this Bargello batiks, which is what the quilt is called. This is made by Donna McDonald. She says she has always admired the Bargello patterns, so it was time to finally give it a try. She was super happy with the design that it created, but perhaps next time she will give the twisted Bargello a go. This is just called Bargello, and it's a tree skirt using a Bargello as a snowflake pattern. It's made by Renee Shannon. I'm not even sure if I pronounced that correctly. I hope I did her name justice, but this was started, I think, in 2022 and finally finished in February 2024. Diane Hannon made this beautiful quilt called Rose Garden, and at first glance, I couldn't tell why I loved it so much, but then when I got closer, I realized it's Lella Boutique fabric. Of course I love it. She said the pattern is Dolce by Fat Quarter Shop, and she learned how to use the Flying Geese quilt block foundation paper to make the stars. Shirley Na created this Taste of Home quilt. She said she made this quilt as a family preservation historical project using her aunts, uncles, cousins, moms, herself, and her daughter's recipes and photos, and it won the Mayor's Choice Award for 2024. Congratulations, Cheryl. This was a Guild Challenge quilt. It's called Hunter's Star, and it's made by Brenda Bauman. What's really neat about this is it's made out of old shirts. Brenda took a bunch of old shirts that were brought in by another Quilt Guild member and used her AccuQuilt Hunter's Star die to cut out the blocks and then put this together. And by the way, that orange tag that you see on there is just indicating that this quilt was available for sale in the silent auction. This is Myra Brent's quilt for the Guild Challenge. She said it was made in loving memory of Robert L. Brent. And I thought this was really cool because I have a lot of old t shirts and flannel shirts from my father in law who passed away several years ago. And this kind of helped me realize that if I'm going to put those into a quilt, it doesn't always have to be a full size quilt, it could just be a small wall hanging. Jason really liked this quilt. I think he liked the pattern of it. So if I were to use some of those old shirts from his father to make a memorial quilt for us, I probably would follow this pattern. This was made by Blanche Dance, and she said it was truly a challenge to find a pattern that she liked for the shirts. With a blue color theme and a touch of brown, this quilt honors her father, which were his favorite colors. I think this quilt would make him proud. This is called Vintage Christmas by Jeannie Endicrat. She said it was a pattern from Temecula Quilt Company that she has wanted to do since seeing a friend's quilt several years ago. And the couple of us decided to do this together and exchange fabrics so it would be a beautiful Christmas quilt. And I wonder if that friend is this person because in the quilt show there was a second quilt, the same pattern, it looks like, with the same fabrics, it looks like. And it's also called the Temecula Vintage Christmas, and this is by Susan Thacker. She says it was designed by Cheryl Johnson of Temecula Quilt Company, and the pattern was offered free on the Marcus Fabrics site. Although the quilt appears to have curved pieces, the piecing includes no curves. A delight to make, and it was completed in 2024. This is called Pencil In. It was made by Blanche Dance, and she said this was her first attempt at paper piecing, and it was a Library 2023 quilt. This is absolutely gorgeous. I think she did a phenomenal job, and I absolutely love the colors that she chose. So this is called Baby Carousel. It's made by Kathy Schumer, and it is machine embroidered carousel animals that she's made into a small quilt. This caught my eye because I recently learned about red work a couple of years ago from my friend Mary, who has a plethora of red line work blocks that she hasn't done anything with. So I thought perhaps this could be an inspiration for her to turn those blocks into a quilt. Okay, you guys, this one's phenomenal, especially when you step back and look at it. This is Knitted Star. It's made by Cindy Cook. She said one of her customers introduced her to this pattern and she loved the stars and that they looked like snowflakes. She looked at a lot of color choices, but really thought that the burgundy and white would make those stars really pop, and she really loved quilting this. I gotta say, I think she did a phenomenal job. That high contrast between the burgundy and white definitely pulled off what I think she was hoping to achieve. Janelle Henson made this Northern Lights Alaska quilt that featured a panel that I think I might have in my stash somewhere. Not quite sure. She said she found the panel at a quilt store in Fairbanks, Alaska called Northern Threads. I was so in awe of seeing the Northern Lights on that trip that I wanted to use this panel in a wall hanging as a reminder of our adventure. I created the design around the panel and then hand quilted it to accent the details. It is my first attempt at creating a piece without following instructions or a pattern. Job well done, Janelle. I love it. This is Boo by Diane Hannon. The pattern is Boo from Fat Quarter Shop. She had fun making it and realized she had enough fabric left over from the jelly roll to make another one. It was the perfect, spooktacular gift for the boutique. Now, this one caught my eye because my friend Ian made one just like this on one of his trips up to visit me, I think around November of 2023. So when I saw this, I immediately thought of him. Here's another quilt from Brenda Bauman. This is the Springtide Sampler Scrap Blocks. She said this quilt was made from the cut-off pieces from a Springtide Sampler quilt, which was a quilt-along on Instagram. This was her first time custom quilting a quilt, and she used her Pro Stitcher Quilting May 2023 Club Tropical House Designs. But she also learned a lot watching Adam Sew Fun on YouTube. And don't worry, I'll link to his channel in the description box down below. This is called Besties by Diane Hannon. The pattern is Balcony by Fat Quarter Shop, and it uses the Besties collection of fabric by Tulip Field. She said she likes how it highlights the different animals and wanted to know if you could see your favorite bestie pet. I'm not playing favorites here, but this was my favorite. This won a viewer's choice ribbon, and both Jason and I voted for it, and you can probably see why. It was breathtaking in person, but it's breathtaking in the photos too. This is called Grand Old Stars by Jennifer McKinney, and she said that basically she just had some leftover blocks from making a patriotic quilt, so she put them together thinking that it was going to make a baby quilt. But then after those were sewn together, she said it started to look more like the center medallion of a larger quilt, so she had plenty of patriotic fabric left over, and she just kept adding rows around the medallion until it turned into what she calls this 82-inch by 83-inch monster. It's amazing what your scrap blocks can create. This is called God Bless America by Jennifer McKinney, and she wrote that a friend from church that she's known for over 40 years said that if she were to hire her to make a quilt, it would be a patriotic one. To which she immediately told her that she does not do custom quilts. Ever. That got her thinking about what she would make if she did make a patriotic quilt. And so she decided to design a quilt on graph paper and make it a surprise for her birthday. Later, she enlarged it to make a bigger one to keep, and this is that quilt. This is called Bombs Bursting in Air, made by Carolyn Sheedy. She said this was her second quilt, and it was made at a class with the Guild focused on borders and bindings. She had a panel that she previously bought, needed a project for it, and thought it would be a good fit for the class. About halfway through the class, she learned of the Willing Warriors Quilts project and decided that this quilt would go to that cause. I'll put a link to the Willing Warriors website in the description box down below so you can learn more. This is Cardinal Directions in Blue, made by Gail Buchanan. She said it was a quilt kit that she made in June of 2024 for her daughter Elizabeth's birthday. I loved this one. It did win a viewer's choice ribbon, and I definitely voted for it. My husband asked me what I loved so much about it, and I couldn't tell you, but I think immediately I was drawn to the blues. And then when I saw it was batiks, I was drawn to that, and I love the layout of the pattern as well. Happy Retirement was made by Karen Jones and quilted by Mindy Camp. She said her husband finally decided to hang up his suit and ties after 35 years with the government and 13 years with the accounting firm PwC. His hard work and dedication have provided a happy life for us and our children, so when he wasn't looking, I absconded with a bunch of his ties and made this pattern by Deb Heatherly. It was my first time using a stabilizer on the silk ties, which was tricky. He's very happy with it and uses it often. This is called Birthday for Dad by Lilani DeWitt. She said, this is the first large quilt I have ever made, not knowing about quilting or the rules of quilting. It was made as a present for my dad for his 75th birthday and as a dedication to his wonderful life. And I think she did a fantabulous job. This is Church Glass and Sunshine, made by Janelle Hansen. She said it's a 4-pointed star pattern made with half square triangles. I was inspired with these colors because it reminded me of stained glass and illuminated by the sunshine. She did some hand quilting on here, so I wanted to get a nice close-up of some of that quilting. I think the overall aesthetic of this is absolutely beautiful. There was a section of the quilt show that had a whole bunch of quilts made from the same panel on display. And after taking a closer look, what happened was the Guild went to a quilt retreat at the Quiltville Inn back in October of 2023. And one of the members brought a panel that was gifted to each individual member of the retreat. During the retreat, they all worked on their own individual quilt tops and had each other sign it. And Bonnie Hunter even got in on the action and signed everybody's quilts. How beautiful were all of those quilts? I cannot believe how much talent is in this area. I loved every single one of those. I did not grab photos or video clips of every single quilt, but I did grab photos of the ones that caught my eye or caught my husband's eye. He loves going to those quilt shows with me, and he was absolutely in awe with some of the works of art that we saw. Thank you, Stone House Quilters, for another great quilt show this year. I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with next year. Friends, don't forget, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye!